All right, I'm excited to welcome in Dr. Drew Pinsky, a familiar face to probably everybody out there. He's the Chief Patent Officer for the Wellness Corporation. Dr. Drew, good to see you.
Good to be here, Sean. Thank you.
All right, so look, I think Donald Trump's election has sent chills down the spine of all of these DC establishment types. I want to talk about some of the specific picks, specifically in healthcare, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, what do you think in general about all these outsiders coming into government?
Oh, I think it's the greatest thing ever. Listen, when I interviewed several people that were in the room with Francis Collins and the CDC director when they made the decision to pull out of thin air the 6-foot distancing and to ignore the pandemic preparedness plans, to ignore everything and to run to one side of the boat that the bureaucrats were insisting upon. And when guys like Scott Atlas showed up and gave them the data that showed them they should be making different decisions, they told them to take a hike. They should lose their jobs for that. These very same guys who were in the room said they were at a party. One guy, this friend of mine, this guy named Paul Alexander, he's a Trinidadian gentleman. He's got a heavy accent. He looks like he should be on the other team, but he was a Trump appointee. And he came into a party at the State Department, and they said, listen, Paul, don't worry about these people that get elected. They don't run the government. We do. I was so disgusted by that I thought, wow, we have a bigger problem than I had thought. Free speech is under attack. Elected officials and the will of the people begs no issue in Washington. This must go. I'm so delighted to see Musk and RFK Jr. in there. I never really threw in for anybody in this election except to say I want to see RFK Jr. in Washington in some capacity, and that's what we got.
All right, so RFK, you got your wish. He's leading the
wish.
Department of Health and Human Services. How important is this in terms of a signal to the healthcare system?
Well, it's a signal that business as usual is no longer. He told me this a year ago that first thing he was going to do, and he's already announced this again, is bring up a RICO statute against the aligned forces in medicine that are adulterated by money. So it's the medical societies, it's the journals, the lead journals in particular, it's the pharma, it's the cozy relationship with the FDA, where people that are regulators go back and forth between positions in the executive structure of a pharmaceutical company. This must all stop. And he's going to give them an opportunity to straighten it out. But things like advertising on television, pharmaceuticals determining what gets published in a major journal, you could see it in full bore, fully exposed during COVID. COVID, as egregious as it was, did us this great favor of exposing things that people like me had no idea were going on, but have been coming for quite some time, including that most physicians are employed and were following the directives of their bosses, not their sacred mandate as physicians. All this has to be straightened out.
All right, I know this is kind of outside the healthcare realm, but since you mentioned the outsiders coming in, a lot of controversy regarding Matt Gaetz. Do you have a thought on him as Attorney General?
I don't know Matt Gaetz. I became fascinated with him when he stood up to Kevin McCarthy, and I thought, well, this is a real dude. he's got the huevos at least, and if he's got a moral compass that is heading due north, I could get behind that guy. But I don't know him. We'll find out. All I know. Here's what I do know. Whenever lawfare forces or the press align against somebody, the overwhelming probability is that's the guy you want. And do not assume that there's any veracity to anything these people say, because they have shown themselves the same people that want to regulate your ability to speak your mind because you have disinformation or misinformation that you are spouting. Those same people are always wrong, have been propagandists, have never apologized, and do not change direction, and they need to be ignored.
All right, so let's just RFK or whomever. What are the priorities? What needs to happen right now?
Well, there's
number one, number two, number three. You mentioned pharma on
very
TV.
Simple. RICO action against the societies, the pharmaceuticals, and the major journals. Number two, no more pharmaceutical advertising on television. Number three, we have to do something with what's going on in science. Look to Brett Weinstein and what he has been saying. How we teach science, what we think is science. Science is a very specific, delicate instrument that has to be used in a specific way, or you are doing nothing. or you're observing, or you're looking at patterns, or you're trying to figure out some statistical reality, but you are not doing science. And the idea that science is dogmatic, this is the Spanish Inquisition. This is how you get Galileo being ostracized. That when there's a dogmatism to science, you need the skepticism always. Everybody who is a skeptic right now is aligned with Galileo. Let's remind ourselves, the Spanish Inquisition did not just catch their hair on fire. They reviewed his case 3 times. And the reason they came after him finally was he was recalcitrant. And they said, look, Dr. Galileo, if you're correct, which you might just well be, all of biblical liturgical analysis is wrong, and we're not up to reconsider the entirety of how we have interpreted the Bible. So just slow your roll, sir. He wouldn't. Okay, think about how much that is exactly what's going on today when you come up against the bureaucracy, particularly in the federal government.
Doc, we got 30 seconds. I know you've aligned yourself with the wellness group. You're well known for all of the advice you've given over the decades. Why did you want to get hooked up with the wellness group?
Because my entire career was spent defending the physician-patient relationship, and we have lost. And I have now moved my position to empowering the patient. We need to give the patient everything. We need to give them information. We give them access. And that's what the wellness company is doing.
So great. That's why I love you, because you've been giving us advice forever, and you have become a trusted voice in this space. So it's awesome to hear you connect with them. Thanks, Dr. Drew. Appreciate you being with us.
Thanks, Sean.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.